Let's take a look at the new features available in Service 365 in October of 2023. First thing I want to show you is that you can now set multiple sets of terms and conditions for your quotes. So if I go into my admin section and quote settings, and you can see I have my standard terms and conditions, and these are what are going to appear at the bottom of my quotes. These are going to be the T's and C's that are going to appear on every quote that I send to a customer. Now we can have multiple types of these for different types of quotes that we want to send out, maybe residential versus commercial terms and conditions. So if I go into quote type, and I can set up as many types of quotes here as I want. If I go into my each option here, and now I have a new checkbox that says overwrite quote terms. If I click that, and now I can expand this section, and I can add new terms and conditions specifically related to this quote type. So if I select each as this quote type when I'm quoting my customer, the terms and conditions that I put here are what's going to appear on the PDF. Okay, the next thing I want to show you is that within quotes, you can now change the responsibility center as well. So if I go into all quotes and I'll go into a previous quote. Now for customers that use multiple responsibility centers or different branches, however you want to describe it, previously you were not able to change the responsibility center once you had created the quote, and now you can. So you can see here this responsibility center for this quote is set to Brentford. The quote already exists, and I can change it to Hamilton or any other responsibility center and hit save. So also relating to quotes, I want to show you another new feature. If I go back to the quotes homepage and I start a quote, and you can see that my quote title now has to be limited to 200 characters. So as I type, the title of my quote here, and you can see that the character limit is going to be displayed, is going to count down as I type. So this is to encourage briefer, more succinct quote titles, because remember, you can still use the scope of work or the job tasks if you need to add more detail. Within jobs, you will now receive a warning message if you try to close a job where there are uncommitted parts. So this is where you have required parts on the job, but you haven't committed that you have physically used these parts. So let's take a look and see how this works. Here within this demo job, I have 4 line items, 2 resources and 2 parts. You can see here for this item, the conduit, I've required 10 and committed all 10 to the job. However, with the filter, I've required 1, I have not yet committed that to the job. So if I scroll up and mark the job as complete, and now I receive a warning message that there are uncommitted parts on the job and that I should review this before I continue. So from this, I could scroll down, find the parts that are not yet committed, and I can either commit them or remove them from the job if I didn't actually use them. So we're going to leave this part uncommitted for now, and we're going to go through to the invoicing tab. Then when I click Final Invoice and Close Job, again, I receive a warning, there are uncommitted parts on the job, and do you wish to proceed? So we'll say no. We'll go back to line items, and let's pretend that in the real world we did actually use this filter. We will click on the committed quantity, and we'll quickly commit that to the job. Okay, so now all parts are committed, and I can go through and I can create my invoice. You can see I have a bunch of customization options here when I want to create the invoice. For now, I'm not going to check any of those boxes. I'm going to go through, press save, and now my draft invoice is created and I can preview it. So now when I'm previewing the invoice, I have an edit button, which I didn't previously have in the older version of the system. So now all those customization options that I had a moment ago, and now they're all back. So I could change the posting date, the description, I could choose whether to group my labor or material, show the timesheet comments, etc. All of the customization options that we have when we first create the invoice, we can now use these when we make edits. So I can change the line item descriptions, and that won't change it in your inventory, but it will change it on the invoice itself. So that's how I can make edits to my invoice after the first version is created. Within purchase orders, you can now auto-commit parts to jobs when uploading the vendor invoice. Previously, this was something you could only do when uploading the packing slip. Let's take a look and see how it works. Here I have an open purchase order, and it's linked to a job. I have one line item, and so I'm going to release my PO. And then in the real world, I would send this to the vendor and receive the parts that are going to be used on the job. Let's upload the packing slip. So we'll upload a sample packing slip and receive the parts. So I'm going to receive this one item, but I'm not going to auto commit the parts to the job just yet. So we'll hit receive. And then when I get the vendor invoice, I can upload that. So again, we'll upload a sample invoice. And now you can see the auto commit all parts to job option is available at the vendor invoice stage as well. Now let's take a look at some of the improvements we've made in the inventory module. If I go into inventory, and you can see that I can now filter my inventory by different categories. So I can actually go into my admin settings and set up categories. And I'll show you how you do that. Go to admin, scroll down and click on item settings. Here we have an option called item category, or we can click add, and we can simply add a text description for our category. And you can see I've already set up filters, conduit and wire as my inventory categories. So if I go back to the inventory tile, and those categories that I set up in the admin settings, these all appear in the drop down box here, and I can filter by these categories. So once they're set up, you can filter, and you can also do a text description for a category as well.